Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? I'm on vacation this week, so I'm gonna hang out here in the shop for a couple of minutes and film a whole bunch of videos in a row. Hope you guys like the red shirt. It's what the next few videos are gonna look like. February has come to an end. I have read 18 total books, 4 of which were in print. Don't get too impressed because the 4 that were in print were graphic novels or comics. Those just read faster than a traditional print book. And then the rest of them were, of course, audiobooks at work. Nevertheless, I was able to forge through a significant number of them, and it went pretty well. And here in my hot little hand, I've got the list. Let me give you a quick rundown of what they were. Number 1 was Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruocchio. This is one that I had originally read in 2018 when it came out. It's the first in a really big series of space opera. These are books that are set, tens of thousands of years in the future. Mankind has colonized the stars and terraformed scores of planets. The main character is a man named Hadrian Marlowe who decides to escape his upbringing, and in the process of that escape he ends up on a planet that he didn't expect to, in a situation that he didn't plan for. And the way that Christopher Ruocchio has described the series, it's a guy who grows up to be Darth Vader and destroys a star, and it was the right thing to do. I'm very curious to see how he gets there. Empire of Silence, like I said, was the first book in that series, and the writing is very kind of slow and poetic, even though it's interesting enough to keep going. By the end of the first book, you do kind of feel like, okay, I want to know that this is going somewhere, and it ends in a very good note where it's taking you into the next big leg of Hadrian Marlowe's journey. I'm excited to read the next one. After that, I read an anthology of short stories about Bass Reeves, the Oklahoma federal marshal. I said that wrong. He lived in Oklahoma. He was a marshal for the Fed, and in his career he brought like 3,000 criminals to justice. I read books about him before. In fact, in 2022, one of my best of year books was Gary Paulson's book about Bass Reeves. This one, I went into it thinking that it was going to be another nonfiction, but no, these were fictionalized accounts of cases that he handled in his time. It wasn't bad. I didn't really get into it. I'm more interested in the nonfiction side of his life. I also read a book about George Washington Carver. I wrote a review of that on my Substack, which will be down in the comments. Also read a graphic novel about the 47 Ronin. That was very interesting. I've got a nonfiction about them that I'll be listening to this month. Forced Perspectives was the sequel to 2018's Alternate Routes by Tim Powers. First book was pretty good. Second book was pretty good. I feel like he was kind of treading ground where he has trod before with previous books of his, like On Stranger Tides. Wasn't bad, just didn't really rock my world. Horus Rising. I also covered this one on the Substack. It's the first in the Horus Heresy under the banner of the Warhammer novels. That's the next big project that Henry Cavill is tackling. This is a series that I'd heard of for a very long time, based on a very expensive tabletop role-playing game that I've never played. But since Cavill is going to be producing an Amazon TV series for it, and he's a massive fan of it, I decided to check it out. I liked this first book, lots to absorb in it, and I'm probably even going to have to go back and reread it before I get to the second one down the line. But there's something like 300 books in this series, and half of those are just under this Horus Heresy banner, so no rush on my part. It's going to take me a while to get through all of those. Callsign Valkyrie, that was in the Order of the Centurion series in the Galaxy's Edge world of novels, originally created by Nick Cole and Jason Onspach. I jumped into this one not knowing how much farther it was in the series than other Galaxy's Edge novels that I've read. I was a little bit lost on some of the things here and there, but it was kind of a standalone adventure. Mostly these books are written for military veterans, and while I have read a lot of nonfiction about military history and people who served in different units throughout different times, I wasn't able to relate to the material that much, just because, again, like, this is written by military operators for military operators. And so I'm just sitting here on the sidewalk observing these guys telling this story. I wasn't able to get as immersed in it as I would have liked, but it was good. Crucible by Waldo Rodriguez. My takeaway with this one is it was kind of a YA novel that, if you've read a few YA novels, from 15, 20 years ago, a happy-go-lucky kind of fat dorky kid goes to a training camp to become buffed up to go fight aliens or whatever. There's a bully at the camp. He makes some friends. It's it hits a lot of the tropes. And I feel like every generation has one of these books, and this is just kind of one for a new generation. It was fine. There was some language. It was a pretty long book, but it wasn't bad. Arsenal by Jeffrey Haskell. Check out my review on upstreamreviews.com. That one just went live this week. The Californios by Louis L'Amour. That's a L'Amour book that I'd never read before. It was kind of a 3-star treatment, sort of a middle-of-the-road type book. If you've read some of the generic Western titles of his, this one will feel familiar to you. It's not bad, just didn't really stand out from the larger corpus of his work. White Ops by Declan Finn. That was a bit of a Star Trek, Star Wars, diehard Catholic space marine in the future type story. First of 4, and I think the 4th one just dropped very, very recently. Thought it was pretty good. I'll check out the next one. Thoughts and prayers with the Finn family. Declan just lost his father this week, so he's hitting some speed bumps. We're hoping that he's able to find some peace and solace soon. Lesser Devil. We're going back to the Empire of Silence Sun Eater series. Lesser Devil is a novella in that series. It bridges book 1 and book 2. Hadrian's got a younger brother named Crispin who was kind of only in the first quarter of Empire of Silence. Lesser Devil focuses largely on Crispin, and it's about a quarter as long as that first book. Like I said, I think he's written a couple of novellas in the series that do this, so it was very good. I enjoyed that one. Mammon Nemesis by Rob Kroese. I'm due to write a review for that one on Upstream. Excellent, excellent ending to just an incredibly well done trilogy. It's astrophysics, it's space mining, it's crypto, it's econ, it's international relations. I mean, he takes a whole bunch of things and just car crashes them together and does it so well. It reminded me a lot of The Martian, but it's got a bigger scope than just trying to get one astronaut off of Mars. It was trying to prevent World War III, IV, and V all at once. Like, so good. There's a lot going on in that series. Red Planet by Heinlein. I also did a review of that one on the Cracker Stack. Gave that one 5 stars. I'd never gotten around to reading that one. I've read 5 or 6 Heinleins in my day. That one is right up there with Starship Troopers in terms of books that I've really, really enjoyed. And then the next 3 of the next 4 are graphic novels. I read Benjamin Percy's Ghost Rider #1. That's the most recent Ghost Rider that's been done. I talked about that one on the Cracker Stack. Artwork was excellent. Subject matter was really dour, but it's Ghost Rider. What do you expect? I'd be interested enough to read Volume 2 to see how this one resolves. Cyberfrog 2 Wrecked Planet. I'm about to do a video on that one, so you'll see that later in the week. As well as Northern Blood by Jason Mikulski. Same thing. I'm about to do a video on that one. I've got it right over my shoulder here on the workbench. And then the last one was a weightlifting book by John Jaquish. I've been trying to read up more on that just because, I've got this shop here, I've got all this isometric stuff that I can do, and I'm eventually planning to invest in an Olympic weight set. But his whole thing is that there's a better way than, buying a whole rack and all the weight plates and stuff. And I was interested in what he had to say about it. It's one of those books that it could all very easily be a bunch of BS, or it could be revolutionary and not a whole lot of people have bought into it. Who the heck knows? I'm going to do more homework on it, but it was interesting to listen to. So that's my 18. Let me give you a quick update on what I've been doing creatively on my own end. This week I finished the final cover for my novel Sheriff Porter, which I narrated for the DreadPennies Adventure Hour podcast last year. So if you want to listen to that story, it's out there on the internet for you to grab. I've been working on getting the print edition together, and I've decided I'm going to crowdfund that one through Indiegogo in the next couple of weeks. But I needed to get the cover done. I'm working on the interior illustrations. I've got the layout all set up. In fact, let me step aside here so that when I edit this video, I can put the cover of the book right there for you. I probably already have at this point. You can see the pitch for that one is it's Longmire versus Twilight, or rather, what if Bella's dad was the main character and he was awesome and he gets to hunt his daughter's boyfriend because he's a vampire. Had a ton of fun writing it. It's dedicated to my friend Porter, who was going through a tough time in life, and I just decided, well, can't do a whole lot for you in your particular situation, but I can write you a story, so here you go. More details as that one gets closer to releasing and hitting that crowdfunding date. I'll have to do a video for it, for the campaign. It'll end up here on the channel. As a final note, I wanted to read you another excerpt from John Truby's The Anatomy of Story, just to give you an idea of what kind of things that I'm reading to inform my own work and make my own storytelling better. He talks about the dramatic code, how we give a story substance. He says the dramatic code is embedded deep in the human psyche. It's an artistic description of how a person can grow or evolve. That's kind of what every story should be about, is growth. We talk about character arcs. We talk about the Campbellian monomyth, the hero with 1,000 faces. Not every story has to follow the arc that Joseph Campbell set out when he wrote that, but we get invested in stories, I think, very, very easily when we're watching a character go through a growth process towards something good, or at least see a character challenged in some way. Often when I'm talking to people about storytelling, I share this proverb that I penned in here at the bottom of the page. There's a proverb that says, "Take what you want and pay for it, says God." That is to say that it's an immutable characteristic of our existence, that whatever we want has a cost. And if we really want it, we have to be willing to pay that cost. An example that I bring up from recent cinema is the middle portion of Avengers Endgame, where they've got to go travel back through time so they can borrow the different Infinity Stones and bring them back to the present and do that whole rigmarole. They've studied it all out. They know when and where they all are. They've paired off and they've teamed up, and they've each got to go after a stone. Like 2 or 3 of them are going after a stone. They've all got a plan, but every single one of them ends up getting the stone by having to change their plan and sacrifice something. You know, Hulk is going to go after the time stone. He figures he's just going to take it because he's Hulk. He's got to go up against the Ancient One. She uses magic, and now he's got to reason with her instead. He's got to use Hulk brain, not Hulk brawn. Cap and Tony, they got to take a one-way trip back to the 70s and hope that they can get the particles that they need to return to the future. Barton, he's obviously got to sacrifice Scarlett Johansson, whatever her character's name is, Natalie. Every one of them has to do something that they didn't expect in order to achieve this thing. It's sacrifice, it's growth. They've got to come out of this different than when they went into it. Like I said, you don't have to hit every single step of the Campbellian monomyth, but a goal has to cost you something. And that's what stories are about. So that's my 2 cents for today. Thanks everybody for watching and for checking in. Click the links below. You know that whole rigmarole. Tell your friends, subscribe, get me out of the truck. Till next time, drive safe. See you out there.